The Hobbit out of the frying pan into the fire, and this is part 2. A Sartagine in IGNEM. Must we go any further? Asked Bilbo, when it was so dark that he could only just see Thorin's beard wagging beside him, and so quiet that he could hear the dwarves breathing like a loud noise. My toes are all bruised and bent, and my legs ache, and my stomach is wagging like an empty sack. De bemusne ire ulterius, Bilbo rogavit, cum audio tenebrosum esset ut sol barbarum Torini vacillantem juxta eam videre posset, et audio tacitum ut spiritus nanorum quasi sonitum magnum audire posset. Digiti pedum sunt omnino contusi atque curui et stomachos quasi sacus in annis vacillat. A bit further, said Gandalf. Paolo Ulterius Gandalfus inquit. After what seemed like ages further, they came suddenly to an opening where no trees grew. The moon was up and was shining into the clearing. Somehow it struck all of them as none at all a nice place, although there was nothing wrong to see. Post quod multo ulterius esse visum est, subito ad locum in corporis nullas crescebat, advenerunt luna erecta in apertum lucebat, nascio quomodo omnes perceperunt, hunc nequam esse locum amenum quamquam nihil mali videri potuit. All of a sudden they heard a howl away downhill, a long, shuddering howl. It was answered by another way away to the right, and a good deal nearer to them. Then by another not far away to the left. It was wolves howling at the moon, wolves gathering together. Repente ululatum quodam ex prono colis audi verunt, longum horentim ululatum, alterum ad dexteram, et multo propius eis respondit, tum alterum non longe ad sinistram erant lupi ululantes ad lunam, lupi se congregantes. It was wolves howling to the moon, wolves gathering together. Okay. There were no wolves living near Mr. Baggins' hole at home, but he knew that noise. He had had it described to him often enough in tales. One of his elder cousins on the Took side, who had been a great traveler, used to imitate it to frighten him. To hear it out in the forest under the moon was too much for Bilbo. Even magic rings are not much use against wolves, especially against the evil packs that lived under the shadow of the goblin-infested mountains, over the edge of the wild on the borders of the unknown. Wolves of that sort smell keener than goblins and do not need to see you to catch you. Nulli lupi propinqui for omni domini Bagginses, domi habitabant, sed illum sonitum scivit qui in fabulis se pen numero descriptus erat, quem consobrinus major quidem e stripe tucis, qui viator egregius fuerat, imitari solebat ut eum terrerit. Audire quem foris in silvis sub luna fuit res nimia vilbone, etiam annuli magici contra lupos non multum utile sunt, praecipue contra manus malas, quae sub umbra monsium gobelinis infestatorum, super limen vastitatis infinibus ignotorum habitabant. Lupius generis acutius quam gobelini odorantur, neque illis opus est te videre a te capiendum. What shall we do? What shall we do? He cried, escaping goblins to be caught by the wolves, he said, and it became a proverb. Though we now say out of the frying pan into the fire, in the same sort of uncomfortable situation. Quid agemus, Ille clamavit, gobelinos effugimus ut alipis caperemur, inquit et proverbium factum est, quamquam nunc e SARTAGINE in IGNEM in eis dem locis in commodis dicimus. Up the trees, quick, cried Gandalf, and they ran to the trees at the edge of the glade, hunting for those that had branches fairly low, or were slender enough to swarm up. They found them as quick as ever they could, you guess, and up they went as high as ever they could trust the branches. You would have laughed from a safe distance if you had seen the dwarves sitting up in the trees with their beards dangling down like old gentlemen gone cracked and playing at being boys. Feely and Keely were on the top of a tall larch like an enormous Christmas tree. Dory, Nori, Ori, Oin, and Glorian were more comfortable in a huge pine with regular branches sticking out at intervals like the spokes of a wheel. Biffer, Bofer, Bomber, and Thorin were in another. Dwalin and Balin had swarmed up a tall, slender fir with a few branches and were trying to find a place to sit in the greenery of the topmost boughs. Gandalf, who was a good deal taller than the others, had found a tree into which he could not climb, a large pine standing at the very edge of the glade. He was quite hidden in the boughs, but you could see his eyes gleaming in the moon as he peeped out. And Bilbo, he could not get into any tree and was scudding about from trunk to trunk like a rabbit that has lost its hole and has a dog after it. Arbores ascendite cito, Gandalf clamavi, et ad arbores in margine ne moris cucurerunt, illas cum ramis humilioribus, aut satis tenuibus querentes ut illas ascenderit. Quas tibi licea cognicere eos, celerius quam potuerunt in venisse. Adque ascendere tam altius quam ramis confidere potuerunt. Tu riseris a distantia tuta, si nanus in arboribus sedentes cum barbis dependibus simili sensi qui quasi pueri luderent videris. Filius et Cilius in vertice lacricis excelsae similis arbori ingenti diei natalis Christi fuerunt. Dorius Norius oinus et gloinus commodiores fuerunt in pinu ingenti cum ramis ordinariis ex intervallis protrusis radis rotes similibus. Befer, bofer, bombur, et taurinus in altera fuerunt, dualinus et balinus abietem excelsam tenuem, cum ramis parvis ascenderant, et locum ad sedentibus signomi ad sedentum optum apud viriditatem frondium excelliciarum invenire conabantur. Gandalfus qui multo altior quam ceteri fuit arborem invenerat in quam ascendere non puterunt pinus magna quae in margine ipso nemore stabat, is in ramis omnino celatus est, sed oculos eius nitentes in luna videre potuisti dum prospici. Et Bilbo in arborem ulam ascendere nequi vit, et a trunco ad truncum circum erabant sicut cuniculum foramini amiso et cani eum consequente. You've left the burglar behind again, said Nori to Dory, looking down. Effractarium iterum relinquisti, Norius deorsum aspiciens Dorio inquit. I can't be always carrying burglars on my back, said Dory. Down tunnels and up trees. What do you think I am? A porter? Effractarios interrogo meo semper fere non possum, Dorius inquit. Secundum cuniculos et sursum arbores quem me esse putas. By ulumne? Just at that moment, the wolves trotted howling into the clearing. All of a sudden, there were hundreds of eyes looking at them. Still, Dory did not let Bilbo down. He waited till he had clambered off his shoulders into the branches, and then he jumped for the branches themselves. Only just in time, a wolf snapped at his cloak as he swung up and nearly got him. In a minute, there was a whole pack of them yelping all around the tree and leaping up at the trunk with eyes blazing and tongues hanging out. Ille consumetur nisi aliquid agimus, Tornis inquit. Nam nunc ululatus circameos erant, propius atque propius moventes Dori vocavit. Nam Dorius era infimus in arbore felicima festina ad et magnum domino baganzi ad ascendentum da. I think I must have skipped a paragraph. I'm going back. Okay, I skipped a paragraph. Let me go back. He'll be eaten if we don't do something, said Thorin, for there were howls all around them now, getting nearer and nearer. Dory, he called, for Dory was lowest down and the easiest tree. Be quick and give Mr. Baggins a hand. That's what I just read in Latin. Dory was really a decent fellow in spite of his grumbling. Poor Bilbo could not reach his hand even when he climbed down to the bottom branch and hung his arms down as far as ever he could. So Dory actually climbed out of the tree and let Bilbo scramble up and stand on his back. Dorius sane fuit honestus homo, musantibus non neglectis. Miser Bilbo manum eius attingere nequivit, etiam cum Ille ad ramo imum descendisit, atque brachium suum longium deorsum quam maxime potuit suspendisit. Itaque Dorius revera ex arbore aggressus Bilbonum ascendere in et intergium suum stare civit. Just at that moment, the wolves trotted howling into the clearing. Nunc cum maximi lupi ululantes in apertum ambulabant. All of a sudden, there were hundreds of eyes looking at him. Still, Dory did not let Bilbo down. He waited till he had clambered off his shoulders onto the branches, and then he jumped for the branches himself. Only just in time, the wolf snapped at his cloak as he swung up and nearly caught him. In a minute, there was a whole pack of them, yelping all around the tree and leaping up the trunk, with eyes blazing and tongues hanging out. Repente erant, se scendi, oculi eo suspiciens, nihil hominus, Dorius, Bilbonum non demisi, moratus donec Bilbo, ex umeris eius in ramos scanderat, ipse in ramos ex silvit, like siluit, modo in tempore lupum quidam amiculum cuius, qui sursum saliebant, mordicum auripuit, et pene illum cepit. In puncto temporis erant omnibus Grex luporum, erant omnis Grex luporum circum arborem ganiens et ad truncum exiliens flagrantibus oculis et linguis dependentibus. But even the wild wargs, for so the evil wolves over the edge of the wild were named, cannot climb trees. For a time they were safe. Luckily, it was warm and not windy. Trees were not very comfortable to sit in for long at any time, but in the cold and the wind, with wolves all around about below waiting for you, they can be perfectly miserable places. Sedetiam ferri wargi nam sic lupi mali super limen vestitatis epilabantur, aubris ascendere neque unt, per tempus nescio quod tuti fuerunt, feliciter tempestas erat tepida non ventosa, arbores non sunt valde commode ad diu sedendum aliquo tempore, sed in frigio et vento cum lupis circum iacentibus infra te expectantibus loci miserimi esse possunt. This glade in the ring of trees was evidently a meeting place of the wolves. More and more kept coming in. They left guards at the foot of the tree in which Dory and Bilbo were, and then went snuffing about till they had smelled out every tree that had everyone in it. These they guarded too, while all the rest, hundreds and hundreds it seemed, went and sat in a great circle in the glade. And in the middle of the circle was a great grey wolf. He spoke to them in a dreadful language of the wargs. Gandalf understood it, Bilbo did not, but it sounded terrible to him, and as if all their talk was about cruel and wicked things, as it was. Every now and then, all the wargs in the circle would answer their great chief all together, and their dreadful clamor almost made the hobbit fall out of the pine tree. Hoc nemus evidenter fuit locus conventus luporum, plures atque plures introibant, custodibus relictis in ima arbore inque Dorinus et Bilbo fuerunt, naribus humi erabant donec quamque arborem, cui aliquis inerat olfecerant, quasquo custodiverunt, dum cederi centum esse visi sunt, in circulo magno in nemore considunt. Et in medio circulo fuit Manus lupus canus. Manus lupus canus. Manus lupus canus. Cum illis in lingua horribili vorgorum locutus est, quam Gandalfus intellexit. Bilbo non intellexit, sed absonam esse terribilem putabat, quasi sermiorum omnis de crudelis adque malis rebus fuit, ut sanis fuit. Aliquando omnis wargi in circulo duci cano uno respondere solebant, et clamor quorum dirus pene effecit, ut Hobbitus epino deciderate. I will tell you what Gandalf heard, though Bilbo did not understand it. The wargs and the goblins often helped one another in wicked deeds. Goblins do not usually venture very far from the mountains unless they are driven out and are looking for new homes and are marching to war, which I'm glad to say hasn't happened for a long time. But in those days, they sometimes used to go on raids, especially to get food or slaves to work for them. Then they often got the wargs to help and shared the plunder with them. Sometimes they rode on wolves like men do on horses. Now it seemed that a great goblin raid had been planned for that very night. The wargs had come to meet the goblins, and the goblins were late. The reason, no doubt, was the death of the great goblin and all the excitement caused by the dwarves and Bilbo and the wizard, for whom they were probably still hunting. Tibi dicam illa, quae Gandalfus audivit, quamquam Bilbo illa non intellexit. Wargi et gobelini sepe inter se malis rebus juvabantur. Gobelini longe amontibus peregrinari non solebant. Nisi expulsi domus novas querebant, aut ad belum iter faciebant, quae res mihi placit re dio non accidit. Sed illis indiebus aliquando impetus facere solebant, precipui ad spoliandum cibum aut servos, qui illis laborarent, saepe vargis juvantibus quibus spolia partiverunt, aliquando in lupis equitabant sicut homines in equis. Nunc nocte ipsa manus impetus gobelinorum cogitatus esse visus est. Vargi advenerant ut obvium gobelini irent et gobelini tardi fuerunt. Sine dubio propter mortuum magni gobelini et omnis concitatio quam nani et bilbo et magus facerant, quos probabiliter ad hoc vein nabantur. In spite of the dangers of this far land, bold men had of late been making their way back into it from the south, cutting down trees and building themselves places to live in among the more pleasant woods in the valleys and along the river shores. There were many of them, and they were brave and well armed, and even the wargs dared not attack them if there were many of them together, or in the bright day. But now they had planned, with the goblins' help, to come by night upon some of the villages nearest the mountains. If their plan had been carried out, there would have been none left there next day. All would have been killed except the few the goblins kept from the wolves and carried back as prisoners to the caves. Periculis omnibus huius terrae extreme non exceptis homines audaces in eam a meridiae recens reversi erant arbores decidentes et ipsis edificantes locos inquibus apud ameniores silvas in valibus et secundum litora Fluminorn habitare potuerunt, multi erant fortes atque bene armati, nec etiam vargi in illos, cum illi complures una essent, impetus fatra ausi sunt, aut in clara luce, nunc autem gobelinis adjuvantibus in vicos alicros proxime montes noctu descendere cogitaverant. Si concilium quorum factum esset, ibi proximo die nemo superesset, omnes necati essent paucis exceptis, quos avergis receptos gobelini captivos ad antra suas retulisent. This was a dreadful talk to listen to, not only because of the brave woodmen and their wives and children, but also because of the danger which now threatened Gandalf and his friends. The wargs were angry and puzzled at finding them here in their very meeting place. They thought they were friends of the woodmen and were come to spy on them, and would take news of their plans down to the valleys. And then the goblins and the wolves would have to fight a terrible battle instead of capturing prisoners and devouring people, wake suddenly from their sleep. So the wargs had no intention of going away and letting the people up the trees escape, at any rate, not until the morning. And long before that, they said, goblin soldiers would be coming down from the mountain, and the goblins can climb trees or cut them down. Haec fuit sermo terribilis audienda. Non solum propter fortes homines silvestres atque mulieres eorum et liberos, sed etiam propter periculum, quod nunc Gandalfo et amicis imminebant. Wargi errati sunt atque incerti quam ombrem illos hic in loco conventus ipso invenirent. Puta verunt illos esse amicos hominum silvestrium, atque advenisse ut ipsos specularent, et nuntium consiliorum in valles laturos esse, et tuum gobelinis atque lupis atrociter pugnandum erit, potius quam et captivos capera in homines ex somno subito excitatos devorare. Ite vargi nequaquam in animo habuerunt se ascedere et padi homines in arboribus effudera non utique ad mane. Longe ad te quod dixerunt gobelinos milites e montibus de censuros esse, et gobelini arbores ascendere possunt aut illas decidere. Now you can understand why Gandalf, listening to their growling and yelping, began to be dreadfully afraid. Wizard though he was, and to feel that they were in a very bad place and had not yet escaped at all the same, he was not going to let them have it all their own way. Though he could not do very much stuck up in a tall tree with wolves all around on the ground below, he gathered the huge pine cones from the branches of the tree, and then he set one alight with bright blue fire and threw it whizzing down among the circle of the wolves. It struck one of them on the back, and immediately his shaggy coat caught fire, and he was leaping to and fro, yelping horribly. Then another came, and another one in blue flames, one in red, another in green. They burst on the ground in the middle of the circle and went off in colored sparks and smoke. A specially large one hit the chief wolf on the nose, and he leaped in the air 10 feet and then rushed around and around the circle, biting and snapping even at the other wolves in his anger and fright. Tunc nunc potes intellegere quam ombrem Gandalfus illos, qui ganiebant et ululabant audiens valde timere ce piset etiam si magus fuit adque sentire se ipsos esse in loco pessimo et numquam fugisse. Nil hominus non patieba tur illos omnino vincere, quamquam multa facere nequivit, dum in arbore excelsa lupis infra circum iacentibus umi. Vigebantur conis pinus. In gentibus e ramis arboris collectis, quedam igne ceruleo, caro incensum sonitu stridulo in circum leporum deiecit, qui unum intergo percussit, qui statim pelle hirsuta inflammata, horribili modo ululans, huc et illuc saliebat, tum alter venit atque alter alius cerules flammis, illis rubis alius viridibus, humi in medio circulo ruptis scintillis coloratis et fumis dissipantur, unus quidam praecipui magnus lupum principem inarem perquissit, qui decim pedis in aerem exsilvit, tum circum et circulum festinavit, iratus territusque et siam lupos alteros mordens et mordicus aripiens. The dwarves and Bilbo shouted and cheered. The rage of the wolves was terrible to see, and the commotion they made filled all the forest. Wolves are afraid of fire at all times, but this was the most horrible and uncanny fire. If a spark got in their coats, it stuck and burnt into them, and unless they rolled over quickly, they were soon all in flames. Very soon, all about the glade, wolves were rolling over and over to put out the sparks on their backs, while those that were burning were running about, howling and setting others alight, till their own friends chased them away, and they fled off down the slopes, crying and yammering and looking for water. Nani e Bilbo clamaverunt, atque plauserunt, ira luporum fuit res terribilis videri, et concitatio quam illi fecerunt omnem silvam implevit. Omnibus temporibus lupi ignem timent, sed hic fuit valde horribilis atque insolitus ignis. Si scintilla quedam in peles illorum venit, fixa est atque illos in usit, et nisi celerime se ubi provolverunt, brevi tempori in flammis omnino fuerunt, mox ubique per nemus lupi se revolvebant, atque revolvebant ut scintillas intergis suis extinguerent, dum flagrentes discurrunt ululantes et alios incendentes, Denec ab amicis pulsi secundum declivis stridentes et ululantes et aquam querentes effugerunt. And that is the end of section part B of A Sartagina in IGNEM, and we will finish the chapter off in another stream with section part C.